that's what I would like to see is the numbers, like how that actually averages out.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we can
I'm
show you.
afraid that they're spending a lot of money on gas and
Yeah, we can show you at least how many trips over the average, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of the fuel use, that'd be something you'd have to talk with companies about. We don't see that.
yeah, that's just something that among my people, that's what we talk about. Because we did National Drive Electric Week on. We want to make sure that these are actually doing what we were hoping to do.
I
All
think
right,
the
good morning,
offset is the number
everyone.
of trips, and if that's
Good
high
morning,
enough,
everyone.
offsets
Good morning, good morning. I hope you all are doing well today. Welcome to the November District 1 Breakfast. We will get started. We've got a few cool things to talk about today, but we wanted to open up by allowing the fire department to give some updates. Turn it over to you.
Walk up too close to this thing.
Probably your,
I
this
had-
mic is
no,
going on
it
that
could
mic maybe.
I had bad luck with this thing last time. All right, thanks. Good morning. My name is Michael Ring. I'm a lieutenant up here at station number 10. We are the hazmat station and special rescue unit. We've got a few different things to talk about. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. Last month, we responded to 13 fire alarms, 61 service alarms, and 565 medical alarms for a total of 639 alarms out of station number 10. The one fire that we went on that was here in this district was on the 2600 block of Pershing, and that estimated value of loss was $135,000 of the structure fire. We're also the hazardous materials team for the city, and last month was a busy month for us. We made several hazmats last month, one of which was a anhydrous ammonia semi-truck that rolled over on 135 and 96, and the driver was trapped in there. We got him out, and we were able to take care of the ammonia trailer, which had just filled up, so it was full and required a bunch of stuff to happen there, and it all went smoothly, which was good.
so dangerous.
It is dangerous, and you're gonna see more and more of it on the highway. They used to transport that with a pipeline that came from Oklahoma all the way to Canada. That pipeline's been shut down recently, so you're gonna see a lot more of it going over the road, which won't impact you at all. Just
Unless it spills.
yeah, unless it spills, which they're usually really good with that. Those tanks are super tough. We had another motor vehicle accident with a hydraulic oil tank rupture the following week, and then another ammonia leak at a cold storage facility in North Wichita that we helped take care of. Multiple natural gas pipes have been hit last month. I don't know, it's just a bad month for them, I guess. So we went to those and helped mitigate that also. So that's kind of what we've been up to. The fire department as a whole has got some things going on. We've ordered a new rescue truck, which is gonna be our hazmat / heavy rescue truck for the city. It's the second one here. It's under construction right now, and it should be here by December, sometime in December. So it's ahead of schedule, and it's badly needed, so we're looking forward to getting that. We're starting a truck academy on the 8th, and it's gonna last all month, and we'll go through that and train all our members in some specialty work, truck work. You'll see us out soon doing the Salvation Army collections at Dillon's and some other places. We help the bell ringers, and except for we hold booths collecting money. November 9th is the boxing tournament, fire department versus police. And if anybody's interested in going to watch that, it's pretty fun. It's at the Sports Forum this year. It's a good time. Wichita Fire Department has made 12 job offers, and we're gonna start a new recruit class on the 18th of this month. So putting 12 more guys through, so that'll be good. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about is just, it's getting colder out there, so people are firing up heaters, fireplaces, that kind of thing. If you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, they're great to have. Yeah, it's a colorless, odorless gas, and you can't see it or smell it or anything, just a little peace of mind. Nice to have. They do need to be replaced every 10 years or so. And also with the weather getting bad, Wednesday, I was in Kansas City, but it snowed quite a bit up there. You know, with the snow coming, just be careful where you're walking and driving. It's gonna get a little slippery, so just some basic safety stuff there. And that's about all I've got. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Sunday is fall back,
Perfect.
right? So we all
Oh,
should
yes.
check replacing our batteries.
That's tonight, actually, or tomorrow morning. Yeah, we'll work an extra hour and you get all just an extra hour of sleep, so.
So
My
one
kids were
question, we won't see you until after Thanksgiving again.
Uh-huh.
Is it smart to fry a turkey indoors?
That's no, that's actually a really good question. I didn't even think about that. Fried turkey's awesome if you've ever had it, and it tastes great, but turkeys are typically frozen. So make sure you thaw that out. Don't do it indoors. Do it outside in your garage, or help to put down a piece of cardboard so you don't stain your concrete, because it's inevitable that some of that oil is gonna squirt out.
Even in the garage may not be wisdom, like
It might
something
not be.
without anything above you, so
The biggest thing is
water.
just don't leave it alone, don't walk away from it. Once it gets all settled down, you dip it down in there and it's good. But a lot of people don't think about thawing the turkey out all the way. You put a big block of ice and some hot oil and bad things will happen, and they happen fast. If you get on YouTube and look them up, or little kids close to that stuff, bad idea. You know, the hot oil burns fast. And if it does catch on fire, don't go spray water on it. It's a big giant thing of oil, so might keep a fire extinguisher around. Those work really well. But yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't even thought of that. I've been smoking my turkeys the last few years. So. All right, enjoy your breakfast. Take care. Yep.
See if we can get that to work. Let's see, police may come in here in a little bit, we'll jump back to them. So we'll go ahead and get started on what we were gonna talk about today, which is the future of Douglas. So you might have seen in the news a lot of information about what might happen, what may not happen. A lot of what was going on with Nelson Nygaard, so we'll talk about that today. And then there's also more information going back to next year, so I've received emails from people who think this was just something we did in like 30 days, and this was council driven. And honestly, the plan for Douglas was approved in 2009, and we just started talking about it again and making some changes, so I won't steal all of Scott's thunder. So we'll jump into that and bring Scott Whale over here. Might hold this.
Yeah, you bet. All right, good morning, everybody. How's the food? How's the food? Fantastic, right? All right. Well, it's wonderful to see you all here. Let me see if I can get this going. Okay. Oh, wait, hang on. Technology and me is not a good combination. All right, let me see if I can get out of the way. So, did everybody see that? Okay. Councilmember Johnson's getting the lights. How's it look? Good? Okay, you ready to rock and roll? All right. Well, I'm Scott Wadle. I'm from Wichita Transit, and you might ask yourself, what's a guy from Wichita Transit doing here talking about a street? And in fact, there's some changes that are happening, and we're proposing, and what's in the budget and got approved is that the transit department will change to the Department of Transportation come the new year. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's a little bit of reference for you. So I'm here to talk about East Douglas. You all might have heard something about that recently. And this is a presentation to really give you kind of a high-level background about it. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, but if you'd like to do that, I'd be more than happy to come back and do that at another meeting. We also have some other opportunities coming up, which I'll tell you about. So the number one thing that I want to get across to you is that nothing is imminent, and that there are no changes that are imminent, including the pilot program that you may have read about. And that at this point, we're really talking about a discussion and exploring different options. So I want to make sure everyone understands that this is just an opportunity to discuss what other options are available and kind of have a community conversation about how best to move forward. So streets over time, they change. These are all photos from Douglas, and you can see here you've got the horse-drawn trolley, and you've got lots of pedestrians. This is from 1884 along Douglas. This is from 1923. I'm sorry, the date's just a little bit off to the side here. And in this photo, you can see parked cars along either side. You can see trolleys going down the middle, and what appears to be a lane of traffic. I wish this pointer was working, but unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Did we skip one? Okay. And then I think we get into the 50s. Yeah, I think so, based on the cars, right? Okay, yeah, it definitely is the 50s now. And what we see here is that the trolleys are no longer there. We can see parked cars along the side, and what looks to me almost to be 3 lanes of traffic on either side of that median there. So lots of automobile use taking place here, and a little refuge for the pedestrians to get across. No trees, you notice that, but lots of awnings along the businesses. So to me, it was kind of interesting to look at this in the office with some other folks and be like, wow, look at this here. But it looks like they went from that environment of like no trees to installing some landscaping to kind of soften some things up. There's a median now, which also would prevent pedestrians from crossing the street kind of mid-block. And you can see that it kind of narrows up. Now there's 2 lanes of traffic on either side and 1 lane of parking, although I'm not quite sure. This is very interesting. If anyone knows anything about this, I'd be really interested to talk with you. But you can see some kind of umbrella shapes up on the top there, kind of like protection shelters of some kind. And you notice that there's no cars parked along that side, and I wonder if maybe this is where some buses were dropping off.
Yeah, there's a bus at that shelter, do you see that?
Yeah, so I don't know if all of those are associated with the buses, if this was kind of like a transfer point or something, but very interesting, huh? So that's 1963. And then this is 2002, and we can see that it's pretty much the configuration that's there today. And the reason why I'm showing these photos is to talk about how streets, every so often, I think people revisit streets and they look at them and they say, are these meeting the goals that we need for today, and are they meeting the goals that we have for the future, right? So we can see how streets evolve over time. And the thing about right-of-way and streets, any property really in particular, is that usually there's not enough to fit everything that everyone desires out of it, right? This is a public good, so there are lots of different points of view about how best to utilize that space, and that not everything fits in that constrained area that we have. So there are trade-offs, right? And it's a matter of what gets you the best return on investment. Now, there have been previous plans that have looked at this for Douglas, and Councilmember Johnson mentioned the one Douglas Design District street. I believe it was Douglas Design District streetscape plan, the one in red up on the corner. And then there was the Douglas TOD project, which was really focused on downtown, and that's how those transit shelters and the curb extensions at the corners were planned out. And then there's this one by Baughman with the orange on the bottom there, and that was actually construction designs to implement a lot of what was recommended in that Douglas Design District plan. Now, as part of that plan, there were some features and some elements in there that generated a lot of conversation, right? And part of that conversation, there were folks, different opinions about this in Douglas Design District, and they couldn't really achieve a consensus on this. So as part of that dialogue, we said, what if we take a step back and we have another project going on, and let's get the team that's working on the Downtown Streets project to come and facilitate, have some conversations with folks, and see if we can take another look at this. So in April of 2019, we got stakeholders from along the Douglas Design District corridor to come together to a workshop. And what we did was we talked about, folks from Nelson Nygaard facilitated this, and we had a conversation about community goals and trade-offs and options and things that other communities have done, and what folks have learned so far working on Douglas Design District, and what were the very important things to folks, and what elements were they looking at, right? Then following up on that, the next day, we actually had 2 public open houses over at downtown Wichita's office, and invited a number of folks. This is where we printed off over 400 postcards and had them delivered in advance of this, these open houses to folks from the railroad tracks going east along Douglas to Hillside to let folks know about this occurring. And what you see here on the table are different graphics, like aerials of the street, and the consultants had spent the night drawing up different options for how could you accommodate and achieve some of the goals that we'd heard expressed. We also checked in with members of the public. There were sheets on here where people could indicate what they felt were the highest priority community goals, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. Because this is what they are, what we heard from the community at that point. And this is posted online. You can go to the website. If you go to wichita.gov/East Douglas, you can see a lot of this information. I'd encourage you to go check it out. But there's a Word document on there that talks about values and priorities. And again, it's the different things that we heard during the workshop and also during the open house. And the number one thing that we heard was about fostering economic development, but very close to that was attracting and retaining talent in our community. And maybe you've heard about these in different conversations too. I know that James Chung in his presentations have brought this up, but I think that they've also shown up in Visioneering Wichita and other initiatives that have come before it. So I thought it resonated a lot with some of the larger community goals, not just along the Douglas corridor. Attracting families and older adults, being a good steward of limited public resources, and making walking and bicycling safe and comfortable. These were the top priorities that we heard from folks. And then there's other things that are identified in the document. So this is, so what we did was after that meeting, we started to look, we were looking at the Douglas corridor, which is the one in orange. And before that, we were even looking at the one in blue. The blue one is the Downtown Streets Conceptual Plan. I did not bring a lot of information about that today, but I'd be more than happy to come back and talk with you all a little bit more about that one. And that's looking at really the network, all the streets in downtown, and how do they function, and how are they meeting our needs today, and are they meeting the needs of the future, and what are some options with them. We were looking at Douglas then from Washington to Grove, and what we were able to do is we said, well, let's carry the design and continue the thought for the corridor through downtown. And so that's how it ends up from the river over to Grove, basically. It's the area that we've been looking at. In terms of public input, we've collected public input through both projects, Downtown Streets and the Douglas corridor. They're really the overlapping projects, so we felt like they fit nicely together. In February, there was a kickoff, and there have been focus groups done with the Downtown Streets group to try and learn more about downtown streets. In April, there was the workshop and the open house events that I showed you the photos of. In June, we had a booth over at the Riverfest, and we also had almost a week-long charrette at the Lux, where we posted boards of different options with different streets and discussions about the overall downtown network. In July through September, we've done a number of different stakeholder conversations. This is focused along downtown for the majority of it, but we've done a lot of conversations with East High, for instance, along Douglas, because we realize that stretch is particularly challenging with the bus loading that they do there, and also with the properties to the north, some of which are revitalizing and changing in terms of how they're used. So we know that parking is important to them. We also understand that pedestrian access is important to them too, because it creates space for some of the patios and stuff that you've seen in other locations. So we've done quite a few conversations with folks at East High. In September, we went to Open Streets. Thousands of people there. A challenging event to try and get people to stop, though, and talk about things. It's like, hey, who wants to talk about making streets even better? And everyone's like, I'm on my bike, see ya.
Right.
So we handed out hundreds of flyers for online surveys, but it's a very difficult time to try and engage folks. But we had a lot of fun doing that. And then in October, we're continuing stakeholder conversations. And there are more plans for things to do, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But what we did, this is the one on the left is from Riverfest. We were right next to the food court, so it was a really great location because people would grab their food and then they could come over and chit-chat for a little bit. And then here we were at Open Streets, out here circulating, trying to get people interested to go on in and have conversations. And what you would see at each of these is we have flyer things that kind of hang up on the tents, and they talk about crash statistics. They talk about transit use and bikeways. And then on the tables, you can see there, we have the Douglas corridor laid out, and then we were receiving comments on that through sticky notes and people drawing and comment cards as well. Oh, and sorry, I should have done this a little bit sooner. I'll tell you what, can we just hand out a stack to each table and just head those down? These are comment forms, and as I'm talking, if you have any comments, please feel free to write them down. If you have some afterwards, please write them down. And if you leave the meeting and you want to think about it, and all of a sudden the thought comes to you, I've got my contact information on there, so please go ahead and get those to me. I'd love to know what you think about this. So anyway, those were different ways that we were collecting input from folks. There's also been a fair bit of media attention about this, and this goes back actually to February, all throughout the project. And I think for a lot of folks, it maybe hasn't resonated as much because people, when you talk about, when you say we're going to have a conversation about streets and how they're used, I don't think that a lot of people think, oh, okay. But when it becomes more sensationalized about what specifically is going to happen to a particular corridor, I think it gets a lot of attention. So, but there's KMUW, we had some ads going on there. You can see KSN, Wichita Eagles written a number of articles about this. So where we're at right now is that there are conceptual designs. They're available on the website. You can go and you can look at them. Please be aware if you do that though, that we're continuing conversation with the stakeholders like East High. The section that you'll see in the graphics online are not the current ones yet. We're still getting those drawn up. For instance, in the graphic that's online, you'll see 2 lanes, and we think that we can actually accommodate 3 possibly. So there's different things like that, tweaks and adjustments. So the next steps is, there had been an agenda item. This is one that showed up in the paper for $25,000. We were exploring the opportunity to do a pilot project to test this out with paint and some posts to see even if that was available as an option. And in order to do that, we were in the process of doing fundraising to see if we could raise enough money to do that. We had received a grant from the Wichita Community Foundation, and in order to deposit the check, the staff recommendation was to accept the check and deposit it, and that was what we had recommended. It was not to initiate the project, it was not to undertake the project, and that was the reason why that was on the consent agenda. So next step will probably include another consideration of whether or not to accept that check and deposit that by the council. We are putting together plans. Now we were planning on doing this, but we're looking at a open house event to collect more feedback, and it's gotten a lot of attention lately, so we'd like to use that to continue the conversation about what should happen along the corridor, specifically along Douglas. And then of course, presentations to advisory boards afterwards, and then ultimately consideration by the council. And this would happen before any action would take place, either pilot project or approval or endorsement of any concepts. So I can't emphasize enough, at this point we are simply having a conversation about the corridor, specifically Douglas. We're also having conversations about other streets and exploring different options. Nothing will move forward until things are approved by the council. Everything will go to the council for approval, and it's very much a conversation at this point. So that is the conclusion of the presentation, but any questions? Yeah.
It's a teeny little thing you said at the very beginning. Transit's turning into transportation.
Mm-hmm.
When did that happen?
That was approved as part of the budget that was adopted in August, but it won't take effect, the name change doesn't take effect until January.
And are there any other things, because I know transit's sort of it's now parking and it's all sorts of great things, scooters, and is that part of that? Is this changed into so many more things than just transit?
Yes, those are, it is part of that, yep.
And are there other things that are added into
Not
transit
at this,
because of
not
that?
at this time, not as
So
part
it's
of that.
parking, transit, scooters, bike lanes?
Bikes to a certain degree. There's certain things that the transportation department can do, there are certain things that they can't do. So changes to the street, for instance, go through Public Works and Engineering, but Transportation Department can help with the planning and coordination of those efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Did I bore you all to death?
No.
No? Okay, good, good. That was great. Well, thank you. Any other questions? All right, wonderful.
That's easy.
The breakfast was great. That's what I'm taking away from this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. I want to give Scott another hand. He did a great job.
Thank you. Very generous. Thank you.
So just to add on to that, since I talked about last year, so if anyone in here is a part of the Douglas Design District, I don't see anyone, but, so they were pushing for this project that was approved in 2009 to actually get done in 2020, which is next year. And that happened as I was sworn in. So we had a lot of conversations about that, and they had a campaign going, and that's where this conversation kind of restarted again. So there was a plan in 2009 that hadn't been dusted off yet to start work, because it wasn't gonna start until about 2023. And they wanted to move that up in the CIP to start next year. So that started a lot of conversations among business owners and property owners on Douglas. And from that, we had several meetings last year. So of course, meeting with the Douglas Design District to see all of the great ideas they had. And then property owners were concerned because they hadn't been talked to recently. So then we met with them and heard a lot of the concerns they had and some of their ideas, and took about 6 months, but we continued to meet and talk, and finally all came together. There was some consensus, and then that led us into, there was one thing that couldn't be agreed upon, which pushed us into February, and that's where Scott's presentation started today. But we have been talking about that pretty much all year last year, and what we can do and how we can accommodate bike lanes and pedestrian traffic. And then this interesting element of scooters came into play, because we hadn't even thought about that, and then that came in. And so that's where all of this comes from, but we still want to make sure you get as much feedback in as possible. But for anyone who might be concerned or hears of concern, we are talking directly to property owners on Douglas and business owners. We want to make sure that anything that we do in changing the streetscape does not harm their businesses. And that was where all of our conversations came from last year. And some of the reds you saw, the medians, that was like part of the heart of our conversation. Some of those businesses have semi-trucks that deliver goods or take goods away, and those medians will get in the way of some of that. And if you drive along Douglas, you'll see when those trucks pull out, it's into that median area. So we've been talking about that. That's a part of this design, and we'll continue to go on from there. So that's that. That was a great presentation.
Councilman Johnson?
What about the business improvement district? Does that seem like that will be likely?
So we hadn't got to that, but I don't know.
Okay.
We will see. We've been meeting on that for a few months now as well, and there's a lot of good to it. There are some concerns, but until we get into those bigger open houses, we've had one. I was sick during that, so I wasn't able to go to that, but I'm sure we'll have more conversations around there. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing, but we'll see what happens.
So you talked about the 25,000 to do poles and painting, and I just think that's a pretty marvelous, I mean, it's inexpensive relatively, and a marvelous way to really conceptualize how this is gonna work for people. And so I just wanted to say, I really think that's great use of time and energy and you know, thought process.
Appreciate that. Some of the emails I get about that, there are people really concerned about it. And again, when it came up in the paper, I reached out to the city manager and asked that we put it on regular agenda, just for people who don't know what's going on, because we live in a bubble, so I know everything about Douglas. We have been talking about it, but the general public may not have known all of that stuff. So Bob even moved it again, because I thought it was gonna be this Tuesday, but he wants to put together a really detailed presentation for people in the public to really understand. But to me, I think it's good to accept it's really just accepting a check. We know what it goes to, but it's just saying that we'll accept the money and get that going. But it makes sense to try it out and see if it actually works first, rather than spend $6-7 million and then find out it doesn't work.
Talking about the bikes that seem to be everywhere, is there any possibility that some of these people who have not been on bikes before understand how the rules are for being in traffic and all of that?
Yeah, we're working on it. I mean, you know, that's a lot of what Scott does.
I've seen some
and-
scary stuff going on with
Yeah.
bikes, and some people have no idea.
Yeah, and I hear that from Bike Walk Wichita too. It's just you have professionals who do it all the time, and then folks that just kind of go to and fro.
Yeah.
But I think that's a conversation that the more we talk about the streetscape, I think the more that conversation comes up, and being safe on those bike lanes and when to cross the street and all of that, and the hand signals, that's just a conversation that'll continue. Lori, and then I'll come over.
Thank you.
So the Douglas Design District has already done some of the painting along the medians. Are we seeing any impact from that at all, other than that they're cool?
There's a lot of tire tracks in those medians from semis.
Well, you have to cross them, I mean, people have to cross them, but is it just for the beautification, or is it
So
having any
a
impact?
lot of that was showing what it would possibly look like to have medians there, but the more important part was the parking. So going from the, what would that be, horizontal?
The
park-
angled to
Yeah.
parallel.
Yeah.
Parallel to-
So really kind of showing what that looks like, and then backing up into traffic, and we've been getting a lot of reports about that. There are people who fear backing up just because some traffic's going by too quick. I've heard a little bit of concerns about pedestrians crossing, because, you know, all those vehicles, angles you really can't see, and then by the time they see you, they're right there. So a lot of that was kind of the same thing. Let's paint it, let's see how it works, let's get the data, and then we'll use that data to make more informed decisions.
That's the way Delano has been for some time,
Yeah.
but their speed is reduced.
And they don't have 5 lanes.
Right, that makes a big difference. I don't feel like I'm in danger there, because people are going slower. That roundabout, although everyone hates it, still, it slows people down.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about doing 3 lanes going either direction, because people already go 50 miles an hour down Douglas, because I live there. And we've gotta slow that traffic down somehow, because it is very dangerous. If you're on foot, good luck getting across the street.
Yeah. But part of that design too adds in bulb out, so it makes it a shorter distance to cross the street. Parking will be different, and really depending on how the final formation is. One of the designs, I haven't looked at the most recent, had your bike and walk lanes next to the sidewalk, and then parking was next to that, so you could always be safe going that way. I don't know if that's changed or not, it may, but all of that's trying to be taken into consideration here. But definitely reducing the lanes and possibly reducing the speed would be good. But the open house in Nelson Nygaard was more than the streets, just like the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan is more than Century 2. It's looking at what's our vision for this area, this corridor? What do we want it to look like ultimately? How do we want to travel along this corridor? And not just think about the lanes. So if we're making this a pedestrian-friendly area that we want to connect to the riverfront and ultimately across the river and back into the Douglas Design District, then you have to look at traffic flows. We're looking at changing some of those one-way streets to two-way streets. I mean, it all goes into a bigger vision, which is why these open houses are so important. The focus and change right now, because the money's allocated, is Douglas, but we also have to think about that whole downtown area.
I just want to say one word, scooters. I'm curious to know, since they have been on the streets and at the side and a lot in the river, I'm wondering if the city has been rethinking this plan to have scooters. I have seen them lined up with traffic lights, and frankly, a person on a scooter, to my mind, is not a vehicle. It's an accident waiting to happen, and I'm wondering if anybody else has the same feeling. You know, the loss of scooters has been on the news, but have people been injured? Have there been any sort of records of accidents happening with scooters?
Scott probably could talk more to that.
Okay.
Personally, I haven't had a lot, well, I've had complaints about people not seeing folks on the scooters and where they are. And, I've had 3 complaints of people who didn't realize we said not to be on the sidewalks, who were on the sidewalks, who fell off and broke a bone or something. But aside from that, I haven't heard a lot of the
I'm
crashes.
just wondering whether anybody's thinking that they should be confined to bike lanes where they're safe. Okay.
Yes. And I'd be more than happy to come and present information, more robust information about scooters. But to address the question, I just want to emphasize that it's very much a pilot project at this point. But in terms of crashes, there have been two that I've been aware of. It sounds like there's been a few more. If it follows anything similar to bicycles, we find that the most common type of crash on a bicycle is actually one person by themselves with nothing else. Like they stop at a stoplight and they fall over because they clipped in, or they run into a tree. And it sounds like something similar is playing out with the scooters. The two crashes that I've heard about from staff at the police department are, one was an individual who was being filmed. A friend had a cell phone and was taking a video, and they were waving and they fell over and hit a parked car. And then the other one was, there was an individual where a car did crash into them. I think they were stopped at a stoplight. Fortunately, it was a low speed crash, is my understanding. The person was transported to the hospital, but it was not severe enough that there was a follow-up on that, is my understanding. So the number of crashes, I think, has been, or the severity of crashes, the number of severe crashes that have occurred has been relatively low. And the thing that I'm looking at too, when we're looking at the data, is how often are they getting used? And so far we're seeing about, I think it's about 1,000, we're seeing about 1,000 trips, and I can't recall if that's I think that's about 1,000 trips a day.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So, but I can comment, I can bring, we have information about trip length, we have number of trips, we also have some maps that we can show you where they're traveling, and part of the data that we're seeing is that Douglas is very popular, as well as the river corridor with the paths along there. So, and then I think part of what you had asked about the bike lanes is, one of the questions that we're actually asking as part of this overall kind of streets network question is, where is the most appropriate place for scooters and that type of transportation and bikes? Because what we heard before the scooters were even brought in was, we heard from people who walk around downtown a lot, and they said it is, and we looked at experiences in other cities too, and I think a lot of folks are very aware of having an object going 15 miles an hour on a sidewalk when you could have, people who are blind and children using that space. And so then they end up in the drive lanes, but then the question becomes, well, what's that interaction like with the vehicles? And so part of this is that the technology and how people get around is changing so quickly, and how does our infrastructure reflect that, and what is the best way for our right-of-way to be organized to facilitate that?
I just wonder if people are noticing them, because it's new, but one of the major problems of bike riders, who have had accidents, it's because of a vehicle is too high and doesn't see them, and the scooter is much lower.
And one of the concerns, there was a concern about visibility, but also about the behavior of individuals being intoxicated or something like that. And so our program does end at when sundown occurs, and we had to work early on with the scooter companies to ensure that that was taking place. Our records show that they are in compliance with that. And so that's one way that we've tried to limit that as part of this pilot, because we realize it's a new technology and not a lot of people here have experienced that. It's something brand new, so those are one of the framework that we set in play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sort of a feedback on Scott's thing.
She was nice.
I just wanted to say, I've been bike commuting around Wichita since 2004, and I've often taken Douglas and stuff, and I just really, really wish that the conversations, and Scott was kind of trying to get into this, is that the conversation probably just needs to be framed as these changes promote creating a more clear and purposeful way for cars, bicyclists, scooters, and walkers, and everybody to interact.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what I would like to see on Douglas. And then when they talked about the 2009 plan for the changes to Douglas Avenue, I was like, can we get that tomorrow? I would really, really like that. And so just, when I bike down Douglas, I don't feel like there's a congestion problem. I feel like there's a problem with a lack of clear, purposeful ways of interacting with cars, bicyclists, scooters, and people. And so I just think that that's kind of more how I think of the conversation, and if that's a good way to frame that, let's frame the conversation in that way. Because we just need a predictable way for people to, for all of the users of those streets to interact. And having a good way for, you know, Douglas Avenue to be interactive for the different types of people that are using it is a good step forward.
I'm on the Transit Advisory Board, so one of the things that helps people a lot of times when Scott's talking about it's a pilot program, the city pays nothing for the scooters. We actually get 15 cents per ride. Anytime anybody gets on them, the city gets 50, that's not a lot of money. But I'm just saying, it's a pilot program, it truly doesn't cost the city anything, and it gives the city a little bit. And if it can help drive the conversation of bike lanes that are protected so that people can actually, you know, take their family on a bike ride because they're not afraid that little Johnny's gonna do this and get by a, you know, it's this sort of grow up step that I think is really exciting. And a lot of people that I talk to that are my age and younger, they are freaking excited about scooters. It is a fun thing to do, it's a family thing, it's, you know, it gets people out and enjoying Wichita, and so there's a lot of excitement about it that you sometimes don't hear because the people that are on Facebook oftentimes are really ticked. And, you know, the people who love them are like, I like them. You know, so I just wanted to make sure to say out loud that there's two sides of that, you know, there's sort of a, as with all change, love-hate going on.
And I appreciate the comments because people are so passionate about, you know, what should happen in our community, and passionate about Wichita in general is very exciting to see and to hear. The thing that where we're framing, kind of looking at the conversation is, what are our community goals? What are we trying to achieve overall? And then how can these corridors and these networks help achieve those? And so that's kind of the framework that we've been using to look at this. And we can talk more about that and specifics about getting into the details at some other point.
I'm just wondering how they're paid for and how and where you see them on corners everywhere. You see them lined up like that's a station for purchasing or whatever. And I'm not sure if the whatever is detailed in getting the scooters and how they're controlled as far as where they're left and parked.
Sure. Well, the scooters cost $1 to activate, and you have to sign up for a membership through the company. You download the app onto your phone, and then you pay. You basically upload like $20 or $10 to that account, and then you pay $1 out of your account to unlock it. And then depending on which company it is, it's either 15 cents or 20 cents per minute to ride on the scooter, and then you're able to lock it up. And you have to take a photo when you stop using it, and you leave it, and you go to disengage. You have to take a photo of where you park the scooter. The regulations about how and where and how you're able to park them is actually included in the operating agreement that each company has with the city, and it specifies where in the right-of-way they're able to park. And there are detailed provisions about not blocking transit, not blocking parking spaces, not blocking other things like ramps and those kind of things.
Well, I was wondering, because I think I've heard remarks that once your time is up, it just stops anywhere, and I'm just wondering how they.
Late in the evening, once you hit sundown, we do have the vehicles come to a stop, and that has been a dialogue that we're continuing to have with the companies.
I would like to know what the end result would be. And my travels like North Carolina, Georgia, different states, they have downtown blocked off, so there's no cars coming through there. It's nothing but the bicycles. They didn't have the scooters, but the bicycles ride through there, and they actually have the tables and chairs and stuff out in the street. And they have the downtown area blocked off, and you have to find some places to park. Are we going to eventually be like that?
Like Old Town.
So far, as part of the conversations, that has not come up as an option that people have really looked into. But I would point out.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Some of the places I've seen.
I would point out that though during special events, we have that occur, but in Old Town, we also have that occur where the pedestrian traffic and also for public safety, we close off some of the streets on regular times.
Piggybacking off of her, we've got a city that's gonna have 4 or 5 different speeds and sizes of vehicles. And they zip around and, you know, the cars are trying to go slow. How slow do you have to go to see a scooter come out in front of you? And what do accidents count for? This is a huge problem. Those scooters look like tremendous fun. I'm too old to try them.
And I think that very well dovetails with looking at our streets in a right of way and how they're organized and what are the best practices for accommodating different modes of transportation if that's what we choose that we want in our community, right? And if that achieves our community goals. And so we are looking at best practices about other communities and what they've learned and how can we incorporate that into what options we're even looking at. So yeah, it's all about organization and use and the speed is very important. It's very critical. The human body is only designed to withstand so much trauma, and at 30 miles an hour, if a pedestrian gets hit, if you get hit as a pedestrian by a motor vehicle, you have a 50-50 chance of surviving. What happens is that your odds of dying go up exponentially as speed increases. It's not a linear relationship. It's once you surpass that 30-mile-an-hour mark, it goes up exponentially. So it's very important. Speed is very critical. It's also critical to being able to see and be aware of your surroundings, because we know when people are traveling faster, they have to narrow their zone of perception to be able to process everything that's going on so quickly. And then the other thing too that gets to this is economics, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much about speed, but economics is also comes into play because during the prior study of the Douglas corridor, it was research had shown that the optimal speed for retail is really around 20 miles an hour. And I think it's different for different types of retail. For instance, a Walmart with a large sign, you can travel very quickly and know that it's there. But if you're traveling along the corridor and you're looking at mom and pop shops and smaller businesses, it's my understanding 20 miles an hour is the optimal speed because it gives you enough time to look and see and react to get to where you're looking to go.
But what's the difference? You go across the river and the traffic is calmer. From Seneca to the roundabout, it just seems like it's a safe zone. Once you cross over the bridge, it's,
Free for all.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage you then to come out to the open house event. We'll make sure to get publicity to you all so that you're aware, you have an opportunity to come participate. We're also looking at setting up something online, so if you're not able to make it, you can still provide comments. I would also encourage you to take the opportunity now and provide some comments on your comment form. And I want to go back to the speed discussion. I was talking about that in kind of more of a hypothetical kind of overall kind of knowledge thing. I'm not saying that the proposal is to go to 20 miles an hour on Douglas. I want to make sure that everyone is very clear about that. But just things to consider as we look at different trade-offs is really what I'm talking about.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So like a lot of the concerns that have been brought up about speed and street design and commerce and what that means, like this design that they're talking about for the street, a lot of these things are already happening in other communities that are neighboring us. So, like if y'all ever visit downtown Tulsa, they adopted a really similar plan, like almost exact looking design to what it is that we want our streets to look like. And at first there was a lot of pushback from the businesses, including a lot of businesses that had semis that weren't going to be able to turn into medians and things like that, which is against the law anyways. You're not allowed to turn into a median technically, not from a cross street. And so that was a conversation that they had with them to begin with. But I would encourage you all, if you travel to any of these communities, specifically Tulsa, I know they have a similar design, and I mean it's allowed a lot of their smaller businesses to flourish, because now you've got cars going slower that can actually stop and shop at these local spots, but also families are safer because you have vehicles that are on the left of you protecting you from oncoming traffic, and then the sidewalks stick out further, so the concern about not being able to see around vehicles is being answered because the way that the design of the street was intentional for pedestrians. And then, you know, you mentioned, sir, about, you know, on the other side of the river, the lane was a lot slower, but it's also because the streets are designed narrower and the sidewalks are a lot bigger, and so my understanding is that's a similar concept of what we're trying to adopt, or what the city's trying to adopt along.
Yeah,
So
it's intentionality.
Right, so they're just trying to be this intentional for everybody in this room to be able to enjoy Douglas. I mean, right now it's designed to move people in and out.
Well, it seems to me that, the path that we're on makes a lot more sense. I just returned from New York City, and that's insane. I didn't see any bike lanes, but I did see bikes going wherever they wanted to go. So, I applaud you for at least trying to work this out.
Yep.
Thank you. Awesome. So, in addition to that, just, it will be I think we're going down the right path and this all sounds great, but there will be a lot of opposition, so I get angry emails all the time. We are an automobile city, stop doing this. You do not provide enough parking and you need to stop trying to slow traffic. All of this is ridiculous. So we will have a lot of opposition to this plan, and I see it and that too, so.
So you need us to contact you to give you the good feedback?
Yeah.
So-
Any
so-
emails would be really nice.
So if we want to get rid of our traffic problem, we just become like Detroit doesn't have a traffic problem because they.
Haul it out.
Because they went through such a bad economic downturn that they don't have a population to have traffic.
Let's not go there, huh?
Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not do that.
I'll forward you those emails and you can respond. But yes, that all is happening, it's good, and as those opportunities come up, please provide feedback. And again, I always encourage you not only to provide that feedback to Trish, who's on the transportation or transit board, and not only to just me as a council member for District 1, but all the council members, just so we all hear the same message and see the same thing from you all. That way, I mean, I forward messages when I get them, but it's different when we all get it at the same time and we can digest it, and most of us will respond to you, so definitely send those out. Any other questions on that?
I'd like to make a comment. Scott didn't mention it, but the bike and pedestrian board meets, and you're invited to come to any meeting, and there is a specific time to comment, and then some of the people comment throughout the meeting. But you're welcome because we're volunteers, and we welcome your comments there where we are making decisions to advise the council. And please come. And Scott, you might announce because we're meeting at a different time Monday, but I think Scott is our leader. You might.
That is supposed to, I help facilitate it. I'm the staff person, so I look to them for direction.
But could you give them a special invite and tell them when we meet?
So my special invite would be to invite you all next Monday. It's at 5:30. It happens at the Wichita Transit Administrative Campus, which is at 777 East Waterman. It's near the arena, and if you drive south on the parking lot with a big LED screen, you'll run into some gray buildings under Kellogg, and that's where we're at. So it's a wonderful time for community dialogue and input, and you'll learn more about projects that are going on that impact bicycling and walking. And they're always very
And scooters.
And scooters, that's right. It was recently added, and it's a great group to talk to. They're always very interested in public comments. And then likewise, there's also the Transit Advisory Board, which it now covers parking. So you can start to see this evolution of the organization itself, and that occurs on, I think, the third Wednesday, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic, third Wednesday. And that occurs in the mornings. It starts at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. I'm sorry, I've got them on my calendar. And always robust discussions about all the topics that are covered in those. Thank you.
Awesome. So I've got a few updates and then happy to answer any questions you might have as well. Two big things, semi-related but not related. I think at our last breakfast, we talked a little bit about the water treatment plant, kind of told you what was going on with that. Since then, a lot has happened in the news you may have heard about, so allegations about the mayor, the DA is not filing any charges against the mayor, just made a recommendation that he file an amendment to his campaign piece that he had received this donation, or it was like a $20 difference, because the gift was not to the mayor, it was, the gift that was in the paper was for charity. So the DA came out with that, so that was the piece with the mayor. And then as far as the water treatment plant and ethics goes, so we've had some internal discussions, some council members with one another, some with our legal counsel about what we can do with ethics and what that looks like. And it seems at this point, we're probably gonna have a council retreat where we discuss ethics. Those retreats are open to the public, so you'd be welcome to come to those when we get it going. And we'll talk about what different things would an ethics policy look like. And personally, I'd rather see an ordinance than a policy. A policy, we can change at any time. An ordinance goes through a lot more vetting, goes out to the public, won't change for 60 days. That gives different opportunities for comment. But we've talked about limits on contributions, what that looks like. That gets real tricky because when you look at a contribution, what is a contribution? What is a gift? And just to give you some examples personally, so tonight there's a banquet, I have a gift. There's a ticket, it's $75. They want their council member to be there. So if we put a limit on like $100 per year, do I go to those? And being that we're a young family, I'm not paying all those ticket fees throughout the year, so I probably won't go if we did put that limit. There's charitable events all the time where we get gift tickets, and oftentimes it's you and your spouse that gets invited. So what are those? There are developers who pitch things to us all the time. I've seen plans for a lot of stuff in District 1 that had never happened. They pulled them and just, it has stopped, and they might wanna go get coffee or lunch. So, you know, I'm in favor of putting some form of register where we show, you know, you got a coffee today for $7.27 from this person, this was the conversation. That stuff doesn't bother me, but when you get into limits, I think we probably have to take a year or two to really look at how many gifts we really give for charity, because that's the biggest thing. And then what do those conversations look like, when, and stuff like that. So it'll be a very detailed conversation that really gets into some intricacies of things you've heard about and just things that happen as a council. There was this narrative of that's the way business is done. It never really got detailed. I mean, you can't put all of that in the paper on 30 seconds on the news. But when they say that's the way business is done, people approach us all the time about projects going on and things they want to do or things they want to see. And the legal pieces of that, which we're all told when we're sworn in, or at least myself and Councilmember Claycomb, because that was our second meeting that we had was with legal, is you never talk about what you're going to support and what you're not. And so when people talk to me about it, I always say the same thing, man, this looks great, looking forward to seeing more. I encourage you to get out in the community. And that's about it. And, you know, so how are you leaning? This looks good, I'd like to see more, we'll see when it comes to the council. And if you begin to start telling people where you're at, that's where you get into the tricky stuff. So I prefer to stay out of jail, so I follow what I'm told on that. So that's the ethics piece. And then as far as Wichita Water Partners, I don't know if you caught the news, but at one point, you know, we applied for $524.5 million for this water treatment plant, and we thought that was a cost. They came back with a cost after the extension because they wanted to see if they could decrease costs even more. So we received that day in person $508.1 million, which is $16 million cheaper than what we were talking about. And the final number is $494 million. So they continued to cut dollars. Just because they cut dollars does not mean they cut quality. There are some things that we really didn't have to purchase and do. So there was 12 miles of new piping that we didn't necessarily have to do, which would have disrupted traffic on the west side. And there are ways to use existing infrastructure that we have that's not bad. And just to repeat, it's not bad. We're not saving money just to save money. This is infrastructure that's already being used. And if we need to dual purpose it, which is what would be proposed on this, there's ways to sanitize that pipe and then reuse it for something else. So we've reduced cost on that. Our steering committee meetings are open. Both of those last two meetings are on YouTube right now. If you just type in City of Wichita, you'll see all the council meetings, all of those steering committee meetings, and it's labeled Northwest Water Treatment Facility meeting. But you can check those out online. We always stream those live as well, so you can check that out. But myself and Councilmember Fry serve on that steering committee, and we are definitely excited about the report of the number, but we're both confident that they can deliver on that. They've given a lot of quality work to us in the past and across the nation. Maybe not a $500 million water treatment plant, but all the partners have worked in various areas of water across the nation, and they outlined that at the last meeting as well.
I want to recognize you for pushing opportunities for disadvantaged and minority businesses. This whole thing has changed to just an opportunity to help the smaller businesses. They're going to pay them weekly, eliminating the bonding requirement, give them some business counseling opportunities and scholarships. It's turned into a major program to help small business, and they're just using the treatment plant as a practical exercise of it.
Yeah.
So you were the one that pushed this, and you've done a very good job.
Thank you. There's actually more exciting news coming, but I can't say it right now. Just got out of a really cool meeting. On that token though, February, because I feel December and January already, our February breakfast, they will be here. Ron Coker, Burns and Mac, and we'll be talking a deep dive into the water treatment plant and the job opportunities. And specifically, what I appreciate about Ron is he understands it's more than just giving a job to a woman or minority-owned business. He wants to help grow those businesses. And even people who just have an idea to get into the business. He wants to help with construction training, business management, and starting your own business. Because he knows that having a bigger vendor base helps out our community, helps out our city. And all of those people, the bigger piece of this is once they go through this process, they can have Northwest Water Treatment Plant Facility on their resume, and they can go out across the country and do this work, and guess what? Bring those dollars back to Wichita. So it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited about it.
So one of the things that I was concerned about that I read was that all this push to get the initial design piece done by the October 30th, what date, so that we could apply for the federal funds, that's the design isn't gonna be in until past that deadline, so are we not able to get those federal loan dollars?
We have successfully submitted our application for the federal funds.
Okay, great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
How much, how to put this, well, what's it gonna cost us, the citizens, as far as this whole water plant thing?
So we're still working on that. I know earlier this year, don't quote me on this because I didn't read it before I'm saying this, I think we increased rates 3% or 3.5%. Our goal as a council was to keep any increases really low like that. This new plant will cost a little more, but there's over 20 years, there's $123 million in savings on operations from some optimization things they've done. What we have to figure out is what that cost to operate is gonna be, and then we'll know more about what the rates will go up to. But I can say it won't be a really high increase just because of the way this is functioned out. The mayor really pushed hard for pushing this out. I think we were looking at a 20 or 25-year payback, and he kind of pushed harder for a 40-year payback, in which taking out a federal loan and state loan allows us to do it. We're locking in some really good interest rates. So by doing that, we kind of make generations pay for this plant and not just us right now. So it should keep our rates down pretty low. And that conversation, I would think, will be coming up here in the next month or two for the council.
Thank you.
All right, anything else about water treatment?
I just wanted to ask about the ethics, and I have no expertise in this area, but to me, and with respect, it feels a little disingenuous to talk about a $75 charity ticket. I mean, don't most ethics policies talk about gifts below a certain amount? So you could take a $75 ticket if it's below the $100 or $150 amount. But
So
$1,000 charity ticket or
it depends.
multiple out of dinner.
So there was was a policy, and I have to go back, because somebody said I was wrong, but when I was running for office, I had called Kansas Governmental Ethics, and they mentioned that you could take anything under $50, and it wasn't a big deal. But even at $50, most of the gifts I get from like nonprofits that want me to show up are $75, $100, $150. So even then, what happens? Now, I was told I was wrong, and when I called back, they kind of said that really wasn't a big deal, those types of gifts. And I know most of the concern was around these private businesses kind of gifting you lunches and dinners and stuff. But the reason why I said we have to really have a deep discussion about it is, what is the definition of gift? And what does that mean? Because some nonprofits here do some really big things, like the YMCA has a banquet, and I think their tickets are $125, and I've been twice. But if they wanna build a new Y, then am I in jeopardy of, because I think it's a good idea, is it favoritism because they gave me a ticket to an event? So that's why I say we have to have those deeper conversations, because my concern is about those things. Personally, my ethics, I don't really care if you buy me a lunch or a dinner. I've actually voted against 3 things that somebody bought a lunch and they thought I was supportive of. But, you know, I'll hear you out, and that's kind of why I go. Now, if there's, I guess, personal gifts, jackets and stuff like that, I think that's wrong. You shouldn't take that. But that's why I say we have to get like really in depth about that. And then, you know, is it a certain amount from a certain person? What does that look like? Is it that person's business? That's the only reason that I kind of went there with it, just because there's so much to it, and we really have to detail that out. Well, without saying his name, I think about this lunch I had where we were at ABI, whatever you want on the menu, and I was like, I'll just take salad. And, well, you know, you can have this, and, you know, this is a really good project. It's gonna do everything that you always talk about, and, you know, that sounds good, looking to see more. And then, I think this person was worried because anybody who knows me knows, like, if the neighborhood didn't sign off, I'm not really a fan of pushing that. And then, so another lunch happens, and hey, you know, so what do you think? I mean, you're the councilman, and, you know, it really doesn't matter what they say, you know, this should happen, you know, you should push this. And, I said, you know, I hear you, I get that, ultimately it is my vote, but you should go talk to the neighborhood. And then like, well, hey, come to dinner, you know, bring your wife, and I ended them. But I was like, you know, just because you keep buying me lunch doesn't really, I mean, I'm gonna tell you the same thing. If you call me, if you email me, I go talk to the community, then I vote against it, so. Yeah, it's just really deep, and we have to figure out all those different nuances of coffees, and I think I've had coffee with, I always try to push coffee because it's cheap, and you really can't say you got influenced by coffee. You know, I had a coffee with somebody who wanted to do a development. I was like, you know, it looks nice. I don't think people are gonna like this, but you should go talk to them, and they didn't. And ultimately, it got rejected by Dad and some other folks. So it's just a deep conversation.
Well, and a part of that is, one of the things that I think about too is when we're talking about $1,000 golf outing. I mean, that's the one that people keep repeating, right? And I'm thinking, okay, they're charging whoever $1,000, but it's a golf game. How much is a golf game worth, right? So you could say it's a $20,000. If people are willing to pay $20,000 to go play golf, is it really a $20,000 golf game? No, it's I don't even know how much golf costs. $60 golf game, you know what I mean? So but defining this stuff and having it written down where people are saying, you know, so-and-so donated X to my campaign right before, right after, you know, having this stuff, like, just for clarification, I got a donation from this company right before this vote, you know, just so everybody knows. Having that kind of transparency, I think is what we really want as a community, because there are so few people who are digging into campaign finance. I mean, trust me, there's, you know, until the newspaper comes along, not a lot of people sit and dig through campaign finance documentation. And so, yeah, and that's something that maybe we all need to be better, you know, educated on how that all works. And I think that's the opportunity here. Let's get Wichita business and government cleaned up and transparent so that people know exactly who's given to who, and they're, you know, people know what's going on, because then people are more likely to to not take money when it's inappropriate, and or to make sure to vote and saying, here's my backup for the way I voted, my community wants this.
Yeah.
And I think you've done a great job always pointing back to your community.
That's a good conversation to have, and the other thing is, so I'm a little different because I came from more of a grassroots, so I don't know most of those folks, but, you know, a lot of developers and business owners during campaigns will donate to all candidates, just in case, so they don't have a favorite, you know, or an issue, you know, maybe you didn't donate to the person who won, and that person is just, they don't wanna talk to you now. So oftentimes you'll see that, with candidates running for office, so that gets a little tricky. Now, the timing is interesting, so if you see contributions right before and after, that's worth talking to whoever that is about. But I do like the openness of it, and I think that, that ends up being a good thing, just having that open discussion.
The discussion about ethics might actually get people to vote more often.
Yeah, I wish. How do you get apathy out of people?
Two things drive people to
Talk
vote.
about ethics, talk about the public sector and the private sector and who's buying what and how you're being bought. When you know how you're
That
being
normally
bought.
doesn't drive turnout.
Yeah,
The
no.
two things that do it are fear and, hope. And there's a lot of fear mongering. We see that right now in this
Yes.
election right now, and there's not a lot of hope. And that's been an issue. So if you have people inspired and hopeful, they'll show up. If you scare people into voting against something or someone, then they'll show up. But oftentimes you get, better government and better policies when people are hopeful and looking to work together and trying to achieve something. So I know I made that commitment. I'm not running for office right now, but I will always do my best to do positive things, and let's talk about where we can go. So, other than that, those were the big updates. Some things to note: District Advisory Board meeting is this Monday, November 4th at 6 o'clock in this room. I don't have the agenda in front of me. I think we only have one zoning issue. Just for everyone's information, one of the 21st and Oliver proposals was pulled. It wasn't 11 and 12, it was the one to the west, which I believe was number 2. They pulled their application, so they're not looking to rezone that anymore. Free Wi-Fi is available here. The hotspot program was funded by AARP of Kansas. And you can sign up for one of those hotspots. You can keep them for 2 weeks. And then we ask you to turn them back in. You can check it back out unless somebody else is here to check it out. But it's here. I think we actually sold out. It's free, but I think we were out the second or third day. But those should be coming back by next week. So if you're interested, definitely check here out, but also all of our neighborhood centers. So Evergreen and Colvin also have those as well. And then Operation Holiday is happening here. The Christmas Assistant Program will be hosted here at Atwater November 4th through December 2nd. We need volunteers, and you can call up here if you can help between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to help out with that program. Other than that, please pay attention to the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan. I want to continue to remind people to do that. Again, it's bigger than Century 2. Conversation might have started because of Century 2, but we're looking at the campus. Just like I said with the Douglas plan, starts because of Douglas, but it's looking at all of the streets downtown. So make sure you give us feedback. Of course, we want to hear what you have to say about Century 2, but what is your vision and aspiration for the East Bay? We need a new performing arts facility. We need a new convention center. What does that campus look like? How can we make it inclusive? What are your ideas and thoughts along that? So please engage. We will always have information available for you for the next meetings. All of those meetings are public. If you can't make the meetings, you can give us feedback online. If you send me feedback, I send that to the committee, so all of your comments will be heard. We do take it serious. I want to also again echo, we have not made a decision to tear it down. We have not made a decision to keep it. We are waiting for public feedback. Many of us lean one way, but ultimately, what the public wants, we're gonna try to make happen. So please engage us on that. Mr.
I just have one comment, save A. Price Woodard Park.
Okay. We will save A. Price Woodard Park, or make it better.
It stays there.
And that's something we also talked about with the Chester Lewis, Reflection Park. So SUDA's development encompasses that. And I've talked with SUDA about how do we make sure we highlight more of what that park is for the kids who don't know that represents the dock I'm sitting in, how do we really highlight what that is? So, and anytime we can improve parks, I know Alejo, who serves on the park board, wants to do that, I wanna do that, so we'll definitely try to always improve if possible.
And the riverfront, next one is November 14th, 6 PM at the Hyatt.
Yes, yes, November 14th, 6 PM at the Hyatt, free to attend, check it out. If you didn't, yeah, well, it's the last one before the draft is released, which will be in January. But, they will be here at our December breakfast, so we will have a Riverfront Legacy Master Plan representative, and we'll talk about what's happened thus far at our next breakfast in December, which will be here at Atwater.
And on the 14th, they'll actually be presenting 4 different conceptual designs. And 2 of the designs include Century 2, 2 of the designs don't include Century 2. But they want the public to be able to build out what that area looks like. So they'll have, my understanding is they're gonna have big tables with big maps. Well, they'll have people be able to move buildings around, design their own landscape, and then take pictures and measure, what are the most things that people wanted, and what were the things that they liked about all 4 of the designs. So the 4 designs that you see, my understanding is, those aren't gonna be the 4 final designs, they just wanna be able to provide folks with a vision of what it could look like. So if you have an idea for what that riverfront, what you think it should look like, show up, and be there, cause I think at the last meeting that happened mid-October, there wasn't a lot of people that showed up, and a lot of them, they all leaned one respective way and kind of drowned out the conversation, and there wasn't a lot of open dialogue. So I encourage everybody that wants to be a part of this, that has a vision for that part of our community, which is in District 1, to go and be present, because right now there isn't a lot of folks this is the same cohort of people that continue to show up, so it really is important for everybody in this room to come out, bring their families, bring their kids, their spouses, and be a part of this conversation, because part of this is gonna be a park, there's gonna be performing arts, it's gonna encompass a whole slew of things that's gonna affect us in more ways than Century 2 does right now.
Awesome, and with that, I will wrap you all up a little early today. Tuesday is election day. Make sure you vote if you have not voted. We tend to do free transit on election days. Tell all your friends who don't have vehicles or struggle to get to the polls. That's there and back. You don't necessarily have to have a sticker like we have in the past. That's something that we pushed through this year. So free transit on election day. Make sure you vote. If you're not informed on who's running and what they stand for, all of their information is online. You can hear what's been said. I encourage you to try to steer through all the fake stuff that's happened. The false stories and narratives. Just figure out who these individuals are, what are their visions for the city, what are their visions for the school board, and then vote accordingly. But definitely make sure you vote. Municipal elections tend to have lower turnout. Even in 2017, I think citywide was 9%, District 1 was 13%, but we should always try to edge above 50%, and we're not there. So let's get more people to the polls. Let's try to get to our 75%.
Oh, yeah. Because it's hard to understand exactly what it's gonna do.
You are awesome, because you also reminded me that the census is hiring. So Census 2020 is hiring. They're looking to hire 20,000 people in Kansas, and those are really good paying jobs. So if you know someone underemployed, unemployed, they need to register for a census job, and they need to make sure they answer their phone. They call you one time, and after that, you go to the bottom, and they'll get back to you when they can. So
you can't have a job.
hey, answer the phone, say you're going to the bathroom, something. If it's a number you don't recognize, try to do that. So the constitutional amendment that's being proposed is about the census. And Davis Hammond is better at this. I just have my understanding of why I'm supporting it. But basically, if you support this amendment, you'll save the state of Kansas about $1 million because the Secretary of State won't have to go back and remove certain college students and recount basically the population of Kansas, which can hurt rural cities and urban cities. Anyway, because those students are there and they will be there, but the Secretary of State historically in the last census would remove those. So they have to go back and count and hire people to do all of that work. So if you vote yes, you remove that, the count's done, that's it. If you vote no, you keep that process in place. He'll have to spend about $1 million from the state of Kansas, readjust numbers, which may or may not impact population sizes. So you think about the city of Wichita, 3 districts could be greatly impacted. District 1, because we have WSU, which now has more students than ever. Friends University is in District 4. Yes, District 4, and Newman's in District 4. So you have those 2 universities who might have students from out of town that the count might get adjusted to. And it's important because with the count also will be redistricting. So all of our districts have to be within a certain amount between, I think you can't have a difference of more than 3,000 or 4,000. So all of our districts are between 63 and 67 or 68,000 people. And we probably will redistrict depending on population increase or decrease. And that normally is around like precincts. So how can we adjust different precincts in different districts to fit that? But it's important that everybody's counted. This constitutional amendment eliminates this additional work. And so I'm voting yes on that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I just want to make sure that we save money and we do things the right way. And I think Kansas is the only state that actually does that.
I think it also involves the counting of servicemen.
Yes, that's it.
And the military no longer helps with that boondoggle. I mean, sorry, that was. The military used to aid the census workers and say, here, we'll do that for you. And the military said, we're not doing this extra work. If you want to do it, fine, you do it. But, so that's again, more cost for Kansas.
Yeah. So, that was that. Make sure you vote, get a friend, get 5 friends, go vote with you. And other than that, if there's no other questions, concerns, comments, have a wonderful weekend. I will see you next month.
Scott, before you head out, I wanted to just
Yeah.